And this year at Oshkosh, we're launching the second century of flight.
I'm humbled, I'm proud, and I'm eager.
The first comment I must tell you is how glad I am it's out. I bet everyone here feels that way.
It's a quirky little thing, but it sure works good once you figure out everything it does.
It's amazing. We've heard things that we never dreamed of.
When you're a girl out there and you win, they look at you and they go, wait a minute, that's not right. She can't win.
And I think we're going to have suborbital space tourism within the next 10 or 12 years that will be affordable. And I think it'll be a few years after that we'll have orbital space tourism.
This is my friend we're talking about, and he has to come back.
I'm always having fun in the sky. That's the best place to be, so.
Kitty Hawk launched the first century, but what better place than Oshkosh, Wisconsin to launch the second century?
3, 2, 1, mark.
We love the camera, don't we, baby?
Hello and welcome to EAA's coverage of AirVenture 2004. I'm John Nicholson. The theme this year is launching the next century of flight. And we're going to hear from Burt Rutan and Mike Melville about their venture into space. We'll also have the latest on the brand new Sport Pilot Light Sport Plane initiative, opening the doors to thousands of new pilots. New leadership for the Young Eagles. As always, we'll visit the workshops and forums so important to EAA members. And we'll get aboard with Bruce Bohannon as he tries to launch himself and his airplane to new heights. All that and a lot more to show you. So let's get started. The sounds of the steel band Verona's Groove, mixing with the roar of engines, signaled the opening of AirVenture 2004, launching the next century of flight. The ceremony at Aeroshell Square.
This year at Oshkosh, we're launching the second century of flight. Kitty Hawk launched the first century, but what better place than Oshkosh, Wisconsin to launch the second century?
Tom Poberezny called forward the man who needs no introduction, his father, Paul, who founded EAA 51 years ago in Milwaukee.
I'm so proud of all of you for being part of our family.
Oscar winner Cliff Robertson was first chair of Young Eagles, the EAA program that's given well over 1 million young men and women their first flights and keeps going strong.
Let us raise our heads, our eyes, and our hearts to the skies above, that we may soar like eagles.
And there were honors for representatives of the thousands of volunteers who make EAA and AirVenture work. Arlene Baer from the Volunteers Kitchen.
Thank you, Arlene.
John Hoven of Fort Lauderdale, president of an EAA Ultralight chapter. Greg Herrick, who's been bringing significant show planes to Oshkosh the past 15 years. And Butch Baina, who has flown more than 1,000 of those Young Eagles missions in his Cessna 150.
Airplanes bring us together, but the real story of Oshkosh is the people and the relationships, the enthusiasm and the passion for flight.
Families such as the Drymans from Minnesota, Jim, Julie, Parker, Colton, and Jax, are key to EAA. Jim flies for Mesaba Airlines.
I've been here 4 times, 4 years, with each of the kids, and I don't know, how long have you been here?
Do you count Jim as one of the kids?
Sometimes.
The biggest kid.
The biggest kid.
The biggest kid says he's been coming here since 1988.
It's a good time. I always had fun and figured get the kids involved. Started doing that with them, so they get appreciation for it. Dad will probably regret it later on because they'll have to start paying for 3 pilots learning how to fly.
There's something new at the edge of Aeroshell Square, too. A members' village. It's for those who already are part of the EAA and for those who want to join. The reasons people keep coming to AirVenture are as varied as the people themselves. Standing with veteran pilot Vern Jobst, Cliff Robertson cites a batch of chili Paul Pobresny's wife Audrey brought out the first time he came.
And that was it, folks, a big bowl of chili. We appreciated it. We ate it with great gusto. We've been coming back ever since. I'm still looking for another bowl of chili.
Vern's take on AirVenture is a bit more traditional.
It's people that are not famous. There are people who just coming here, little kids, you know. That's why, because the little kids are the future of aviation.
Along with the eye on the future, there is always the eye on the sky. And this opening day was another beauty. Whom do you talk to arrange this weather every year, Tom?
We all pray pretty hard, but you know, there's a lot of hard work that goes into this event. The weather certainly is a big factor, but more importantly, it's the programs, the people, the enthusiasm, and the passion.
About 700,000 people showed that passion coming to AirVenture 2004. More than 4,000 volunteers giving 250,000 hours to make it all happen. There were more than 30,000 campers, a near record 802 commercial exhibitors, 2,500 show planes that were eligible for judging in one of 11 categories, among more than 10,000 airplanes from North and South America, Australia, Europe, and Africa. Some of the first to arrive, the pilots of the traditional Bonanza fly-in from Rockford, Illinois.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It's, you know, that's the whole idea of this group. We're all friends, and we get together each year at various locations around the United States and practice our formation work. And yeah, it's kind of like a family reunion every year.
There were 90 planes for the 15th year of the Bonanza fly-in. It's one of the many things that please EAA founder Paul Pobresny as he looks to the next century of flight.
Be my desires on its way of making aircraft more affordable for the average person and continuing our effort as EAA folks to encourage more people to be involved, whether they build their own airplanes or in particular the many small companies sprouting up designing and manufacturing light airplanes.
It started with home-built airplanes and home builders in Paul Pobresny's basement in Milwaukee in 1953. And home builders will continue to play a key role in moving EAA forward. Builders such as Corey Bird, who flew in from California.
It's a quirky little thing, but it sure works good once you figure out everything it does.
It's called Symmetry, and it drew a steady stream of the curious every day at AirVenture. A one-of-a-kind design, Bird says, from a clean sheet of paper.
The structure was complete, and I didn't know how to use a computer then. Now, I'm not sure I know how to loft this particular shape on the computer, but it was developed by carving a 10-scale plug or model, and I rubbed on that thing for like 2 months, and I said, I kind of like that shape. And then I took it to the radial arm saw and I cut it up into little pieces to get the sections, and then grew it into a full-scale plug, and that's the same plug I used to build all the parts onto the outside of the thing. So,
Idle 360 Lycoming engine, mid-wing, composite surface,
You can just get nice smooth lines, optically perfect surfaces, you know, nice tight gaps, and I just like that. It seems like if I were an air molecule, that's what I would want to go over, is something real smooth rather than buckles in an aluminum surface.
Of course, Burt works for Burt Rutan and Scaled Composites. He says he built this to get back and forth from Mojave to his home in Oregon. 2 tanks carry 28.5 gallons of fuel, good for 3 hours. He and his wife fly in it together.
We sit overlapping. Her feet are about at the instrument panel, and my feet are about at the firewall, and it turns out it's very comfortable with the 2 places in there.
Burt says he just wants to go as fast as I can without the extra money. There's still work to do on symmetry.
The next big thing on the checklist is, or the wish list, is a Aero Composites constant speed propeller. So I can turn it flat and start descending a little bit better.
It's pretty impressive as is. Bird Symmetry won the Gold Lindy Award, Grand Champion for Plans Built at AirVenture 2004. One of the most eye-catching airplanes at AirVenture 2004 was this Sopwith Pup, the much lesser-known brother of the famous Sopwith Camel. Steve Culp brought it in from Shreveport, Louisiana to debut it at Oshkosh, and it took a bronze Lindy for Plans Built aircraft. The men and women who design and build and who restore the airplanes they show off here learn, and in many cases teach, how it's done at the EAA workshops and forums. More than 150 each year at AirVenture. Here's a taste. Quite a few of the people at those forums and workshops got their first taste of flight through EAA's Young Eagles program, and many others are the pilots who have flown those Young Eagles. The program begins the next century of flight with new leadership.
I'd like you to meet the new chairman of Young Eagles, Harrison Ford. Let's welcome Harrison Ford as the new chairman of Young Eagles.
The annual Gathering of Eagles on the first night of AirVenture 2004 saw EAA President Tom Poperesny introduce the actor and aviator as the one to lead the Young Eagles next.
This is my first time at Oshkosh, and it's an awesome experience. I'm humbled, I'm proud, and I'm eager to do what I can, along with you, make this program prosper. Thank you very much.
Ford succeeds fellow actor and pilot Cliff Robertson, the first Young Eagles chair, and General Chuck Yeager, who led the Young Eagles past the 1 million flights mark last year.
As with Cliff, as with Chuck, Harrison's been a longtime member of EAA, and prior to accepting this responsibility, he has flown himself over 100 Young Eagles. 200. That was a test, and he passed. Thanks, Harrison, for your participation and now your leadership. 200 and counting.
Going into AirVenture, 35,000 EAA volunteer pilots had given more than 1,070,000 young men and women their first rides in an airplane.
I've been flying Young Eagles for the last 3 years, and I'm delighted to have been honored to have been asked to assume the chairmanship. And it's a daunting task following in the footsteps of Cliff Robertson and General Yeager, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity to fly more kids and become more involved with EAA.
The next morning saw Ford drawing a crowd for an EAA Press Center news conference and some private time on the grounds and flying above for a man who plainly loves flying.
There's great freedom in the air, but there's also great responsibility, and I think the two working together, kind of center your mind and give you a focus and ambition. I like developing new skills. I like seeing the world from up there. I like the people that I meet in aviation. I like airplanes.
With Harrison Ford now in place as chair, the goal for Young Eagles is another 100,000 first flights each year. Ford, Cliff Robertson, and General Yeager also were involved in a Young Eagles presentation at Theater in the Woods later in the week. By the way, General Yeager was given the key to the city of Oshkosh this AirVenture for his achievements and contributions. The big buzz at AirVenture 2004 was the Sport Pilot Light Sport Plane Initiative, meaning we begin the next century of flight with a chance for vast numbers of new pilots to take off.
This is making aviation achievable for so many more people. This really breaks down the barriers to entry into aviation. And many people are finally going to be able to realize their dreams. And actually, when you look around you here at EAA AirVenture Oshkosh, you're looking at people dreaming about aviation.
EAA's Ron Wagner and others busy all day, every day answering questions about Sport Pilot Light Sport aircraft at the Sport Pilot Pavilion on the edge of Aeroshell Square.
What you want to avoid is getting denied on the medical, assuming you're healthy enough. Now, it is absolutely important.
I don't want to fly if I'm
If you're not medically...
Being able to use a driver's license as a medical is just one provision of the newly brought out Sport Pilot Light Sport Plane Initiative, making it easier to get into flying. FAA Administrator Marion Blakey started her two-day visit to AirVenture 2004 Thursday with a visit to the Sport Pilot Pavilion.
Well, the first comment I must tell you is how glad I am it's out. I bet everyone here feels that way.
EAA President Tom Poberezny handed commemorative plaques to FAA people for their part in developing the regulations.
It's a wonderful thing because it's going to increase the number of people who fly. And as far as I'm concerned, that is a wonderful thing. It also will make it safer to fly, and I think that's a critical aspect of it too.
It's good news for certified flight instructors such as Gary Damon.
It'll just speed it up. It'll just make it possible, I think, for young people particularly to get started now and continue flying and not fall out. You know, they get married, they have kids, and they fall out now. Why? It costs so much money. Well, this is going to be more affordable, I think.
Good news for his nephew, Ryan Kristen Oliphant, too.
So he can teach me how to fly through time, and because it's a lot easier now than it was then.
So you're pretty excited about that?
I'm very excited.
And it's good news for Paul Hamilton, pitching this Cosmos, as well as instructional videos and DVDs.
The problem with ultralights and ultralight trainers in the past is that everyone thinks that they're a bucket of bolts. Okay, now people will be able to have a certified aircraft that will, and they'll feel much safer with this.
There's an array of light sport eligible aircraft already available, which is good news for companies such as Sonex, which Jeremy Monette says has 3 such planes.
We expect the current demand spike to continue to trend upward, and in the hundreds of airplanes per year. We've already been at hundreds of airplanes per year, 200 to 300. I expect that to perhaps double in the next 2 to 4 years.
Which would explain why you were smiling.
You got that right.
This is one of those times when a cliche is true and fitting. The feeling here about Sport Pilot Light Sport aircraft is the sky's the limit. It was a jam-packed visit for the FAA administrator, who jumped at the chance to try a light sport plane ride for herself from the ultralight area. The Sport Pilot Initiative increased interest in ultralights, and there were about 300 of them to see in all their flying glory. Blakey was also among the dignitaries in ceremonies for the new tower at Whitman Regional Airport. And she continued the tradition of Meet the Boss, answering sometimes tough questions from a standing room crowd of EAA members.
Anytime you are drawing, numerical lines in the sand, obviously, there's a certain quality to it that you have to at some point call it and say that's where it is.
About the only thing Blakey didn't do in her AirVenture visit was judge competing airplanes. There were plenty of those, as always, these in the Antique Classic area. Frank Schelling brought this beauty in from Pleasant Hills, California.
This is a 1918 Curtiss JN4H Jenny. It's powered by a water-cooled V8 Hispano-Suiza engine. It's known as a HISSO. It's got 150 horsepower, dual ignition, and overhead cams. It was just a fuselage, but it was an original HISSO-powered Jenny, which is what I wanted. And by that time, I'd collected all the other missing components. Spent the next 30 years restoring the thing to get it to look like today. It's restored as close to original as I could possibly get it, down to the original instruments. The fabric is Irish linen. The tires are the right thing, everything. And it's always been my desire, after I finished it, to get it to Oshkosh, and that's true. It cost a lot of money to get here. It was a lot of effort by my crew over here, who have spent the last year and a half trying to get here. So this is just great. I love it, and I think the people out here are enjoying the aircraft also, which makes me feel real good.
The Jenny won the Gold Lindy as the Antique Grand Champion. This Stearman won multiple awards, including World War II era champion. Richard and Sue Packer brought two of them from Radnor, Ohio.
My husband convinced me that doing two at the same time wouldn't be any more work than doing one, which isn't really true, especially when you get to 8 Stearman wings. But it's covered with butyrate dope and restored back to the original configuration.
The Packers bought the airplanes in 1990, took 7 years to restore them, and continue to work on them today. For a complete list of award winners, log on to airventure.org. Warbirds of America continued their stirring contributions to AirVenture with spectacular demonstrations of bombing and strafing and precision flying of these beautiful restored airplanes. Among those flying, as always, the inspiring World War II ace Bud Anderson and Jack Roush's replica of his P-51 Old Crow. Even at rest, the Warbirds are an imposing presence. Among them in 2004, this ME-109 Messerschmitt, which belongs to Harold Kinsvater of Clovis, California. It won a Judge's Choice Award for Foreign Fighter. And this SB-2C, said to be the only one flying. It belongs to the West Texas wing of the Commemorative Air Force. John Hess told us about the Helldiver.
The normal attack was about 80-degree dive angle, and from the people I've talked to, the airplane would enter at somewhere around 15,000 feet. And the pullouts occurred somewhere around 2,000 feet to 1,500 feet. A couple of guys told me in order to pull out, they'd pull a little over 9 Gs. And in some cases, they put both feet on the instrument panel and pull. They'd wake up going up.
The man who named his B-29 for his mother, Enola Gay, and flew her to Hiroshima with the atom bomb, General Paul Tibbets, came to AirVenture 2004. At Theater in the Woods, he told of a meeting in 1948 with President Truman.
He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Sir, I think I did what I was told." He slapped his hand down on the desk as he stood up. He says, "You're damn right you did. You did the damn exactly like I was told. Anybody ever give you any trouble? Next one that gives you any trouble, refer them to me. I'm the man that sent you." I don't know the exact date of my first.
While at AirVenture, General Tibbets sat down to tell his story for posterity on videotape. becoming one of many timeless voices.
Timeless Voices is a way of chronologically putting together the lives of some of the people that won't be with us in the future.
In the middle of all the noise and activity of AirVenture 2004, in a small building next to the EAA chapel, two men and their camera are recording history. Nick Nabel and Dave Marks of EAA Film and Video Department have been at it for years, interviewing several hundred timeless voices of aviation.
Every day that's why we got the Kleenex box sitting here. No, it's amazing. We've heard things that we never dreamed of.
Among the voices, Mike Teetry, a P-47 pilot during World War II.
My instructor in primary told me I was too dumb to get scared. Probably true. I never had any hair-raising experience, but there are a few times I felt a little anxious. Time dilated. Yeah, I thought it took 2 weeks across that airfield, and I could hear the guns going off, but I didn't get hit. I had the philosophy, if it misses you, you got nothing to worry about. If you got a direct hit, your worries are over.
I enjoy photographing it because I think the story needs to be told, and it's a very rewarding part of my life at this point. It's wonderful to see these and hear these folks.
Colonel Charles McGee of the Tuskegee Airmen, the legendary African-American fighter pilots who never lost a bomber.
I got in the scrap there in August of '44 and shot down the Focke-Wulf 190 north of Vienna. But that's the way we operated, and we ended up flying pretty close to the bombers in pretty tight formation.
Some of them have never talked about it before, and they're given this opportunity, and something happens in this room. They begin to open up, and we've heard people say, geez, I've never even told my kids about this, and here I'm telling you guys this.
Vi Cowden, on a male flight instructor, trying to show she could not handle a tough crosswind.
The thing that was in me was, I'm going to show him, So I made a good landing. Then he thought it was, I guess he thought it was probably luck. So he said, shoot another one, shot another one. I could have flown a bathtub that day because the challenge that he gave me and the kind of a person I am just made me do it.
The excerpts you're seeing are from a 2-hour movie they've put together with EAA's Scott Guyette. It's showing at the AirVenture Museum. Adam Smith is museum director.
If a person can take you back in time into their cockpit or into their world, I think we've achieved something that our beautiful aeroplanes in the museum are wonderful, but they can't tell those stories.
Marks has shot just about every major sporting event there is. Nabel is an award-winning videographer, writer, and producer. They've been a team at Oshkosh and AirVenture more than 20 years. Timeless Voices of Aviation is a cooperative venture of EAA and the Library of Congress. Many people have contributed to it by recording interviews. But Nick Nabel and Dave Marks have made it a mission.
You get connected with them, I guess, and it's just like a couple of friends sitting together here. And when you're with a friend, you can ask them the questions that you need to.
I was a child during World War II, and I had family that were in the battles, and I remember speaking with neighbors from World War I that are no longer here, and that's why I feel that this is so important. And when we gather these stories, I say, well, in 30 years, we probably won't be gathering many stories.
So they want to keep gathering timeless voices, as many and as fast as they can. Warbirds also are featured at the Reno Air Races, and unlimited racers such as Hoot Gibson and Bob Odegaard demonstrate each year at Oshkosh. And sometimes warbirds show off in the air show, in aerobatic routines, which is just one thing the versatile pilot you're about to meet does.
about this airplane because it's so fast and it's lighter. It makes an excellent aerobatic airplane for a T6.
You're on board the Two of Hearts with Mary Dilda, above Air Show Center at AirVenture.
I'm actually putting negative G's on this airplane, which is not normal because the engine and the carburetor is not set up for inverted negative flight. So if the engine coughs, you know, it can quit, but as soon as you get it rolled back up, it'll start again. So it's a little interesting out there.
It's an SNJ, the Navy version of the T6 trainer. A warbird, a racer, and flying for the first time at AirVenture as an aerobatic act.
Welcome, Mary Dilda. How are you doing?
Oh, Fast Eddie, I'm doing great and happy to be here.
She's equally adept at handling an interview with Fast Eddie Luter on EAA radio.
Hey, I'll tell you what, this is the best air show in the world. Actually getting to perform is such an honor. It's fantastic.
She has so much energy, if you could put jumper cables on Mary Dilda, you could start a C5, which is what her husband Steve was flying when they met in the Air Force. Now, both fly for FedEx out of Memphis.
We just had our 18th anniversary, and I'm the luckiest person in the world because he is so supportive. You can't get a better husband. You know, I don't know any man that would ever allow his wife to do what I do. Of course, I don't think anybody could allow me to do something. I'm going to do it anyway. But
I'm probably certainly her biggest fan. Do everything I can to make things happen for her. I get a lot of fun out of that and enjoy what I do, and enjoy watching her deal with people, watching her fly the airplane.
At one time, their plan was to take turns racing the Two of Hearts at Reno. Now, Steve flies the T6 pace plane there. There's a different engine for aerobatics and for air racing. Crew Chief Chip Woods makes sure that all works.
Mary's been wonderful to work with. She's got the drive and the passion. She loves flying, and the good thing is she's good at it.
In 1997, she got a ride in Mystical Power and won the T6 class at the Reno Air Races.
gosh, John, winning the championship at Reno that year, you know, it was the year after being a rookie. And I'll tell you what, it was the biggest thrill of my life. You know, I hadn't ever really done something that big before. And it just was a wonderful opportunity that was given to me by a lot of people. You know, it's taken a lot of work to get an airplane that fast. And what's really great is this airplane is actually faster than that one now.
She was second at Reno last year, as this Reno Air Racing Association video shows, and she's favored in 2004. Patty Wagstaff says the airplane doesn't know whether it's a man or woman piloting. Mary Dilda says that's right.
When you're a girl out there and you win, they look at you and they go, wait a minute, that's not right. She can't win. In fact, we've had a few comments on that line. It's really been fun.
Born on a ranch in New Mexico, a graduate of Oklahoma State, years of military and civilian flying experience. Oh yes, she also came in second in the jet race at Reno. She's 45. Where are she and her team going?
I want a P-51 or a Sea Fury. I want to do the unlimited races. I mean, we're racing T6s, we're racing the jets, but we've got to get that unlimited thing under the belt. And I'd like to continue on the aerobatic routine, maybe with a formation of Steve and I, you know, and just build on what we've been doing. It's exciting. We have a huge future. You know, you have to keep setting your goals, and once you reach a goal, then you have to keep going.
Mary Dilda is just one of many stars who filled the afternoon sky at the AirVenture Air Show in 2004. Patty Wagstaff came to AirVenture fresh from Triumph, including demonstrating Raytheon's military trainer at the Farnborough Air Show and being inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame, looking in better flying shape than ever.
You know, I'm riding horses more, and I think that helps, so I have a great horse. So.
How's the reaction here at Oshkosh this year, would you say?
It's good. It's good. I've seen a lot of old friends, made some new ones, and a lot of people, and it's always good, and the weather's beautiful.
And up in the sky, still having fun?
I'm always having fun in the sky. That's the best place to be, so.
Sean D. Tucker was back with his spectacular routine and looking to changes early in this next century of flight.
And I got some new stuff that I'm working on my backup airplane with a 3D model tail, and I think it's going to revolutionize, if I can figure out how to fly it, it's going to revolutionize aerobatics airshow aerobatics as we see it today. And we're learning it from the RC modeler guys with big control surfaces, and I'm just having a wonderful time trying to figure this stuff out.
Get a look at the paint job on this airplane. That's Matt Chapman in the cockpit. The man from Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, used to be known as pretty conservative.
I rebuilt the airplane this past winter, wingtip to wingtip, over in Onstead, Michigan. Did the rebuild and the paint work. Minkus Design Systems did the design on the paint. So we've really been busy changing the image, the paint, the flight suit, the website, the autograph card, the posters. It's never ending, but it's a lot of fun.
Crazy, Matt Chapman?
No, not crazy. Just having a good time with it.
Kirby Chambliss is still doing his amazing takeoff and was looking to defend his U.S. National Aerobatic Championship in the fall. But he's flying a new airplane with a new sponsor.
Everything's new. A lot of the act's new, but I'm really excited about having Red Bull as a sponsor. It's a new airplane. Everybody keeps asking me, did you paint that yellow airplane? Oh my gosh, no I didn't. It's going to stay at home. I practice it in that yellow airplane, and I keep the Red Bull airplane out on the road. 22 shows this year, a couple in Europe, a lot of things are new.
Bobby Yunkin picked up the Bill Barber Award for 2004 and worked his way down a line of previous winners at Theater in the Woods. Some his heroes when he came to Oshkosh as a boy.
To grow up and get to know these guys that you're heroes, you know, it's just a dream come true. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I never aspired to be an air show pilot. I just kind of drift along and things just kind of happen to me. And so anyway, I just can't tell you what this means to me.
Yunkin is still up to his new tricks with Jimmy Franklin, Les and Ken Shockley and their jet trucks, and Jim Leroy.
Well, we've added a little bit every year, and we're really pleased with it. I think everybody else is pleased with it too, and we're having a ball doing it. It's just fun to be here at Oshkosh, presenting something like that to everybody here. Jim Yunkin, Bobby Yunkin's dad, calls it Bobby and his idiot friends, but we call it Masters of Disaster, and we're proud of the name, so we're going to stick with that one.
We talked with all those air show stars as they signed autographs at the Lycoming tent. Sponsors make it happen for these performers and their crews, and vice versa, as evidenced by the lineup. The Aero Show team keeps that name out in front of the crowd every day. And since 1993, Aero Show has been using another personality, putting out cow posters each year at Oshkosh.
Oh, you're kind of cute too. Yes, she did. Look, she's at Amelia. Say hi.
For this year, Amelia the cow finally showed up in person, and people lined up to get their pictures taken with her in exchange for a donation to the Young Eagles program. Eclipse Aviation launched the next century of flight with more than 2,000 orders for its Eclipse 500 jet. President Vern Rayburn says certification's expected in March 2006.
It's going to be an exciting time, I think, for everyone, certainly for us because of the effort we've put into this and the time that it's taken, but also I think for people who are travelers because it's going to really mark the beginning of a new era of transportation.
Twin engine, 5 or 6 seats, designed to get passengers where they want to go as the crow flies.
People are going to be able to fly in a small aircraft when they want to where they want to go, not on some spoke to some hub on the schedule that the airlines want you to. And it's going to be an alternative. We're not going to replace airlines, never intended to, don't want to. But we do see this as a real alternative, particularly for transportation to where the airlines don't go, which unfortunately is more and more places.
The Eclipse 500 jet is priced at $1,175,000. Ford Motor Company, a major AirVenture sponsor, brought speed on the ground to Oshkosh, the Ford GT. Fast enough to take on airshow performer Michael Mancuso in his Klein Tools airplane in a dash down the runway. Ford boss Edsel Ford rode with race driver Mark McGowan. Who won? That's a matter of opinion.
Well, first of all, I guess I have to admit I cheated a little bit there, huh?
Somebody had the starting flag.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. The car looks so beautiful on the track there, on the runway.
It does look beautiful, Mark. What's your strategy out there in trying to beat an airplane?
Get a good launch, and it accelerates hard. We're easily getting over 170 miles an hour in less than, we're using 6,000 feet of runway. We're getting 0 to 170 back to 0, and I'm hardly touching the brakes.
Well, let's talk to the man named Ford. Edsel, you're in there. Were you given any instructions on how to beat Mike?
No, I mean, if we'd had a fair race, I think the Ford GT would have won.
That sounds like a challenge, Mr.
Mancuso. I'm not going to
Uh,
say it was just a fair race you'd win. I think I'd still win, but we'll try and make it a little more
I
even
think
tomorrow.
Friday's going to be a different day.
You're going down again. That's what I'm telling you.
No way. Not.
Right,
I
we'll
get
see.
to call the starts.
All right,
How's
that's
that?
good.
How's that?
Sounds good.
Are you staying behind
See
this?
what we've started here? No, this is great. I mean, it's a great audience. Wonderful 100,000 people here. I don't know how many people are here, but there are a lot. And Ford's very excited to be here and part of EAA, and it's great for us.
It is one of those races where everybody wins. The military aircraft presence always at AirVenture begins the next century of flight with crowd favorites and a glimpse at the latest technology. Plus, a massive presence at the center of Aeroshell Square.
The biggest airplane at AirVenture 2004 is this C-5A, drawing a crowd from the time it opens in the morning.
It's big, real big. I've seen it down in Charleston a couple times, and it's still just as big here.
16 feet bigger than a 747. Second biggest in the world, we're told, behind a Russian plane that hardly flies.
I think it's pretty big. That's what I think. And it has a lot of power. Yeah, it's cool.
Even bigger than the Airbus Beluga that dominated Aeroshell Square last year. It's part of an Air Force Reserve unit from Massachusetts. Captain Andrew Biscoe is Public Affairs Officer.
This is the only plane in the Air Force that can carry 2 main battle tanks. Or if you want to put 7 helicopters in there, you can line them up side by side. There's no other airplane in the Air Force that can do what this does. It has a max payload of about 260,000 pounds. So you can take very big things to very far places very quickly.
For fun, some trivia. You could put 6 Greyhound buses in the cargo compartment, more than 250,000 cans of soda, and ping pong balls?
Millions and millions of ping pong balls.
How many cans of tuna?
That I don't know. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one.
Loading is a big responsibility. And on this airplane, a 22-year-old senior airman named Ryan Johnson is load master. It can be tough.
Just doing a pretty simple load of Humvees in the desert or something, You get 20 trucks in there running and crawling underneath, slinging chains at 120 degrees outside. It's not fun.
And you got to get it right.
Oh yeah, you got to get it right. In other words, it'll bounce around and throw the center balance of the plane off, and that's bad.
Senior Airman Shelley Martin has been up on the flight deck this trip.
And what I do is I'm what we call AFIN, and I work all the autopilot and augmentation systems. I pretty much take care of all the indicators and everything that has to go with keeping this thing up in the air.
30 feet up in the air on the flight deck, the commander, Major Matt Warren, is at home.
I enjoy the heck out of it. I get to fly all over the world. It's a traveling machine.
He started out flying a Cessna in ROTC in college. This is different. Look at all these controls and instruments.
It's kind of like a stereo system. And when you understand the basic component and then you stack them up, it looks a little daunting, but it's a cumulative effect. And when you need to do a specific function like adjust an airspeed, you know that you can just reach right there and hit one button. You know where that button is. You're not looking for the whole stack because you've done it for the last couple of years, and you get used to doing it over time.
Warren and his crew know how to do it well, and by week's end, we're off and flying to their next mission. Another airplane with an historic mission was on display at Aeroshell Square. This C-141C Starlifter jet, known as the Hanoi Taxi, the airplane that took American POWs from Hanoi to freedom in February of 1973. The interior walls are lined with photos of those freed prisoners who signed their names on the Hanoi Taxi on their way home. Where do you find a puppet show at AirVenture? At KidVenture, of course, back for another year with all kinds of activities for the boys and girls who will make the next century of flight happen. Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University put on the puppet show, and it included one of its star students, 19-year-old Jamal Larkin, whose aerobatic skills have put him in such venues as The Late Show with David Letterman. Not far away, 9-year-old Rachel Miller was working on her propeller.
Are you having fun? Is this your first time at Oshkosh? What do you think of it?
She might have said more, but she was working on her propeller. Back at Air Show Center, Greg Poe, a man who's especially concerned about kids. He lost a son to drugs, and that's a big focus for him as he takes his flying act across the country.
The best thing that I think you can do as an air show pilot, you basically have this stage with all these people here. You can go out and present a positive message to all the kids about how they can pursue their dreams, live their lives to the fullest, and not really waste the opportunities that they have.
Air Force Major Ed Hamill made his Oshkosh debut 3 years ago. Now he was back as a full-time air show performer with a show he calls Living the Dream.
It is a tribute to the last century of aerobatics. I tell a story with my show, so it's educational, hopefully educational, and a little bit inspirational. So I'm just glad to be back here at AirVenture 2004.
Gene Soucy at the controls, Teresa Stokes out on the wing, wowed AirVenture crowds again with the Showcat and showed no signs of slowing down. And Michael Goulian roared in with a new sponsor, Castrol, the two-time U.S. aerobatic champion, three-time U.S. team member, looking ahead.
I love meeting the people. The best part of EAA is the people, and it seems this year there's more young people here than ever before, and that's great because this is all about the future of aviation. If we can inspire these kids to do it, that's what it's all about.
Saturday, high noon at AirVenture saw Bruce Bohannon taking off for 50,000 feet and a U.S. altitude record.
Our goal is real simple, and that is to get higher than the highest U.S. record for a piston airplane in any category.
He had already set or broken 33 records, most in the Exxon Flying Tiger. But he burst onto the scene at Oshkosh in pushy galore in the Aeroshell Speed Dash in 1993. It was a Formula One gold-level racer in Reno, but never able to catch John Sharp's nemesis. Frustrating for Bohannon and crew chief Gary Hunter.
We've had some good times and we've had some tough times, and we hammer them out together, and then we sit down and have a couple beers and talk about how great we are at the end.
Gary's been with me since about 1990, and you would have never heard of me if Gary hadn't walked into my life.
Then, Bohannon's friend, Hoot Gibson, who's raced Formula One and Unlimited and commanded multiple space shuttle missions, set a time-to-climb record.
The day he did the record, he was on every TV station in Houston, and every magazine covered what he did. And I went, I see an avenue that I might be able to use to get more sponsorship.
I showed him the first time. He noticed how much attention that gathers and how much attention that got, and I think he said, this is something I could do, and this is something that could be useful to me. And so he has sure taken that ball and run with it.
Bohannon already had landed Mattituck engines at Oshkosh. Now Exxon came aboard, and Pushy went into the AirVenture Museum.
And in 1996, we built an RV-4 and started flying it, and I basically knew that was the best airplane I'd ever flown. I mean, it was just a perfect airplane. So that's where the idea of the Exxon Tiger was born.
Exxon's Steve Sunseri says the relationship has helped in both directions.
Publicity helps. And he's been on probably 6 or 8 covers and 50, 60, 70 stories. And it justifiably so. I mean, the guy set 28 world records in 5 years.
Bohannon's wife, Donna, runs the business end. She's a pilot, a former TV news reporter who spent time with the FAA. They live at their own Flying Tiger Airport in the middle of nowhere, Angleton, south of Houston.
I've said many times, if you want something done, sure, I'll tell you I'll do it. But if you really need it done, you have to tell her, and then it gets done. She's so supportive of what I do. Basically, if I want to do it, she just helps me figure out how to get it done.
I trust Bruce, and I trust his instincts and his abilities, and you say a few prayers and back him up as much as you can and hope for the best.
Bruce's son, Brian, is part of the crew, as always. Younger brother John, with an obligation back home, wishing he were here. There had been a scare early in the week. The turbo had been damaged, but a quick shipment and a day of work got it fixed by Friday afternoon. So here they were, Bohannon breathing straight oxygen for an hour and a half to protect himself from nitrogen bubbles, and the crew checking and double checking. This is dangerous the higher he goes.
It's our job to reduce those risks to a minimum, and we're good at doing that. So far, so good.
And then he was gone.
Naturally, when he takes off and he disappears and we have no radio contact, and it's that hour of waiting and wondering and looking at the sky and waiting for that distinct sound of the engine, that's nerve-wracking.
You don't really want to sit down. It's more comfortable to be standing up, and you do wind up not pacing back and forth, but you do wind up pacing around a little bit.
This is my friend we're talking about, and he has to come back.
Bohannon climbed, and time passed, into the crisp, thinning, brutally cold air, to 45,500 feet, give or take, where he could go no more. Spectators applauded his return anyway.
We don't always win, but at least we can fly the plane home again. I like it when you can still use the plane over again.
While Bohannon and crew continue to chase the higher, faster dream, Burt Rutan and his scaled composites team had taken the higher part to a new level, into space in the privately financed and developed SpaceShipOne.
There is a good chance now that there will be in the future affordable space tourism and other people can go.
It was an exciting thing to do, and it tested me to the limits of my capability.
The man who'd flown SpaceShipOne is Mike Melville, who described himself as a 63-year-old home builder. Who'd have thought it?
Well, I would have never thought that. I mean, no one ever suggested that. It never occurred to me. I mean, I was part of the program. I made some of the parts. I'm a machinist by trade. I helped in some ways to build the airplane. Some of the design I even did. But I knew that I'd be involved in the early testing of it because of the experience that I have, and Burt had picked me to do the first flight of it, regardless of what else happened. But it never occurred to me that I would be the guy to fly the Flight 15P, which was the one that happened to go into space. That thought never crossed my mind until suddenly it was announced that I was the pilot. And it was, you know, it was just amazing to me that I thought, wow, I'm going to be the first private individual, privately funded program to fly himself into space. You know, not very many people have actually flown themselves into space.
Barely 2 months later, Rutan's team would win the $10 million X Prize for taking SpaceShipOne into space and back twice in a week. At AirVenture, Rutan looked beyond that.
And I think we're going to have suborbital space tourism within the next 10 or 12 years that will be affordable. Okay? And I think it'll be a few years after that we'll have orbital space tourism. The little guy has to do it. There has to be investment. There has to be competition for getting the costs down. and it needs to happen over the next 10 years, not 30 years. And it needs to get started aggressively so that we will have it in 10 or 12 years.
And so the next century of flight was launched. EAA President Tom Poberezny looked back at another week that was.
I think what most sticks in my mind is the excitement for the future. Young Eagles, the investment made in the kids. Burt Rutan and Mike Melville, two home builders going into space. Chuck Yeager handing over the reins to Harrison Ford for the Young Eagles program. The X team out on the airshow line watching the noise and smoke and the crowds come to the flight line. John, we could stand and talk here for 20 minutes going through the litany of things. It's really Oshkosh's aviation's buffet.
That's going to just about wrap up our coverage of AirVenture 2004. As we launch the next century of flight, it's also important to keep these great classic airplanes flying, like this DC-3, which also was a C-47. That's why it's in the warbird area. I get to choose each year how I leave AirVenture, and this year, I'm going to take off in this DC-3. For EAA, I'm John Nicholson. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
This is an exciting time. Over the past decade, we've spent a lot of time looking back retrospectively at historic events. People have made significant contributions, military, civilian, the flight test. But now as we enter the second century of flight, we have a chance to look forward, and we're very excited that EAA has played a significant role with Sport Pilot, Light Sport Aircraft, Young Eagles, and of course the design and innovation that comes out of the amateur-built aircraft program. What I'd like to see is the base, or the base of the pyramid. Aviation is a triangle. At the base is the grassroots aviator, the sport pilot. I'd like to see that base grow so we have more people getting involved in aviation. We're competing for their recreational time and their recreational dollar, and we want to be sure we're competitive because the thrill of flight is something that everyone should experience, because once they do, they're hooked. What this event represents is EAA on a year-round basis. So what it does is it charges everyone's battery. It's a chance to share information, motivation, emotion, passion, all those intangibles, but those are the intangibles that make dreams a reality. I think what most sticks in my mind is the excitement for the future. Young Eagles, the investment made in the kids. Burt Rutan and Mike Melville, you know, two home builders going into space. Chuck Yeager handing over the reins to Harrison Ford for the Young Eagles program. The X team out on the airshow line and watching the noise and smoke and the crowds come to the flight line. John, we could stand and talk here for 20 minutes going through the litany of things. It's really Oshkosh's aviation's buffet. Jimmy Franklin and Bobby Youngkin and Jim Leroy, they take us back to the era of the barnstormer. A lot of noise, action, smoke, and you could see by the crowd's reaction that they really struck a chord with them. John, EAA is an organizational participation. Our members are involved in all aspects of aviation. You think back to December 17th, 1903, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, that's where aviation got its start, the first century of flight. But what better place to be than in Oshkosh to launch the second century of flight, because this is the place that's recognized as the home of sport and recreational aviation.
So here we are at AirVenture 2004, moving into the next century, and last year we were asking people, if you could meet the Wright brothers, what would you say to them? What would you say to them, Hoot?
Well, I guess I'd say the very predictable thing that I guess probably any pilot would want to say to them, and that would be, can I fly it? I would have loved to had a chance to fly that airplane. And of course, Scotty Crossfield and his whole team that was recreating the Wright brothers flight on December the 17th, 2003. I know Scotty fairly well, and I was tempted to pick up the phone and call him and say, hey, Scotty, when do I get to fly it? So I'm very impressed with the Wright brothers. When you look at what they did, again, without a whole lot of education, but with a lot of perseverance, a whole lot of hard work, dedication, and some insight and a real gift, obviously, for this, because they put it together where everyone else had failed. I would be extremely impressed to get to meet the Wright brothers.
Who else impresses you over the first century of powered flight?
Oh, gee, where do I start?
Maybe Lindbergh.
I guess, well, to answer the question, who else impresses you, I'd say yes. They all do. I was one of those kids that grew up around flying and grew up in a flying family and used to hop on my bicycle and ride to the library and go through the stacks of aviation books. And that was the only place I ever went in the library, was the aviation books, much to my teacher's consternation going through school. But I've been a student of aviation and aviation history all my life, and so, you know, how far back do we go? We go back to Alcock and Brown, and we go to Lindbergh, of course, and certainly Chuck Yeager and Scott Crossfield and all of those folks. I've been fans of all of theirs for years and years and years. And it was EAA that's enabled me to meet all these people. It was the association through EAA and the idea that you can show up here at AirVenture 2004 and rub shoulders with the likes of Chuck Yeager and Scott Crossfield that keeps bringing us all back. So I'm afraid to say I have so many heroes, and my dad was one as well. My dad was a test pilot, literally flew Jennies and then jets later on in his career, so he was one of my aviation heroes growing up as well. So I just have a whole great many aviation heroes.
I suspect a lot of people don't see the connection between flying a Cub or flying a Casset and commanding a space shuttle. But it's all flying, isn't it?
It certainly is. And I always confess that I was fascinated by the space program and watched the Mercuries and the Geminis and the Apollo launches. I was fascinated by it. I was glued to the television. But at the same time, I really wasn't interested in flying those. They didn't have wings on them. And I've always been an airplane person. I've always been crazy about flight and crazy about flying. One of the things I didn't realize was actually how much flying they actually did in those capsules. We're not supposed to call them capsules, they were spacecraft. But I never really understood how much actual stick and throttle that they actually did with those things, or that they had a lifting capability and that you actually did maneuver them during re-entry, for example. I never knew that, so I should have probably been a little more educated about that. But it was when Space Shuttle came along that I looked at that and said, wow, an airplane that flies in space and comes back and lands on a runway just like a real airplane. And in fact, it is just a real airplane. And so the thing that you realize is that they perhaps have more in common than they have different. They all had wings. They all had propulsion of some sort. They flew through the air. They could glide. They could do those things. And I tell people all the time when I am around other Southwest Airlines pilots and they're asking me about what was the cockpit like, I tell them, if I sat you in the cockpit of a space shuttle, there would be many, many more things that you would understand and know exactly what they were than there would be things that you wouldn't understand. And you'd say, what's that for? There wouldn't be that many of those things. So yes, they are all flying machines. They're all airplanes. Space Shuttle is a great big airplane that flies higher and faster than any other airplane, but it's just another great big airplane.
Where do you see aviation going in the 2nd century? And where would you like to see it go?
I wish I were better at telling the future, foretelling the future, but the advancements that we have made, and I feel like just in the last 10 years or so, that have made their way, of course, into our field of aviation, experimental aircraft, have been so dramatic. GPS, moving map displays, liquid crystal, all of those things, I think, are evolving us so rapidly. I think safety is going to be one of the big fallouts out of it. The ability to maneuver around somebody else without air traffic control having to tell you that there's another airplane there. We can do that now today with TCAS. So the advancements, I think, that can come out of some of the technology that we already have in hand, I think is going to greatly increase safety. I think speed is going to increase. I think I've been a great big fan of speed and altitude all my life, and along the way of world records and things like that. And I think the technology is going to move forward. I think we're going to get smarter about engines and about integrated systems and health management, health monitoring of the airplane, not of the pilot necessarily, but of the airplane itself. And all of these things are things that are being put in on the very high-end fighter aircraft, for example, and spacecraft at this point. And some of those things will make our way down to us as well. So I think the 2nd century, looking at it right now, you'd say we'd be hard-pressed to move as far forward in the 2nd century as we did in the 1st century. But once again, I think maybe I'm just not that good at telling the future, predicting the future. And I'm sure there are going to be some exciting things that come our way in that 2nd century.
And what is Hoot Gibson going to be flying in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Wish I could predict that as well. So far, I only own one airplane, and that's my baby. That's my little Formula One racer that I've had over 20 years now. And I tell people, I must like it because I've had it over 20 years and I'm still not tired of it. I plan to keep flying as long as I possibly can do it because there's a thrill that you get from the sky. There's a bond that you have with the sky from seeing clouds from the top side and enjoying the time in the air. And one of the astronauts that I used to work with had a plaque on his wall that it said, "The Creator does not subtract from us those hours spent flying." And that's always been my feeling. So I'll be flying as long as I am physically able to do that.
try and just tell a story, you know, like we all do in the video business. I want to let the viewer feel what's going on in the airplane and see something they couldn't see any other way. You know, that's what I'm thinking firsthand. What can I capture that's just going to give somebody, they're going to take a look at the thing and go, wow, that's cool.
How does EAA film and video get us aboard all those airplanes? Meet Mark McGinn, a big man working with tiny cameras. He's a little busy just now.
Everyone's different. Whether it's aircraft or Miss Budweiser hydroplane, stock cars.
He has mounted cameras in and on trucks, boats, airplanes, even the Wright Flyer reproduction. He got his first big boost with EAA here at Oshkosh.
First thing I got to look at, especially with an aerobatic aircraft, is where we're going to put it where we can tie it safely. And we're concerned about the weight, of course. That's always a concern. Anybody's vehicle, weight and position. You know, I'm starting with a 6 or 7 pound camera pack. These guys are banging 9, 10 Gs. We've got our own self-contained power supply, a digital recorder, and of course the camera controller that processes a video signal, all self-contained in a box.
EAA's Brian Shumway is working with him.
This is what I really need. This should be with the, it might be inside the yellow kit.
Okay, so yellow kit
and that,
one of these.
Yeah. What are you doing to me now? Come on.
When it rains, he deals with it. He says anything can go wrong, but his success rate is about 96%.
Electronic equipment is not real friendly with water. You know, that's the bottom line. This stuff has glitches, and it's just the best we can do. You know, it certainly slows things down. I mean, tape doesn't stick to the aircraft. You know, it's just all kinds of problems.
He has mounted a camera on a strut on Jimmy Franklin's jet-powered biplane.
It's a really wide lens. It sees about 115-degree field of view. So we're going to get a real sweeping view as Jimmy climbs. That's where it'll be most dramatic, when he stands on end with his plane and climbs so fast.
Pilots and crew chiefs trust him with the airplanes and their lives.
I've worked with virtually every one of these guys many times, many different shows, and that helps.
His systems are designed so that 5 minutes before the pilot taxis out, McGinn flips a switch to roll 80 minutes of tape. At AirVenture 2004, his cameras were all over the X-Team, Masters of Disaster. The sun came out, and it all came together.
I'm having a great time. I love airplanes, and I always have. And doing this and making money at it, I mean, how can you do any better?
Everybody wants to know a little bit of something about it. And you get questions from all walks of life, people who don't know anything about aviation, and they're just very impressed with the airplane. And it's such a huge airplane that they can't imagine that it flies very well. And I always tell them it's a great airplane. It's very smooth, it has a lot of augmentation, and it's a flying machine. It has long range. It's fun to fly it from one continent to another, and it's amazing when you wake up, or not wake up, but arrive the next day in a whole other part of the world, 6 time zones from where you started from. It's quite a traveling machine.
So this is just tons of stuff. How do you keep up with all this kind of stuff? How do you know what all this stuff is?
Well, when you learn one component at a time, you can break it down. You can understand a single radio panel or a single instrument for its basic components. It's kind of like a stereo system. And when you understand the basic component and then you stack them up, it looks a little daunting, but it's a cumulative effect. And when you need to do a specific function like adjust an airspeed, you know that you can just reach right there and hit one button. You know where that button is. You're not looking for the whole stack because you've done it for the last couple of years and you get used to doing it over time.
If there are 1 or 2 most important gauges, or 3, to keep aware of, what are they?
Attitude indicator, right there. Attitude is very important. Absolutely number 1, especially when you're flying in the weather. And beyond that, probably airspeed. So you don't want to stall the airplane, and you don't want to get it into an unusual attitude. So beyond that, everything else is just kind of supporting. Okay, well, these are the most important instruments, of course, right in front of the pilot. The attitude indicator is the most important. All the little red flags are just various warning flags for different functions of the attitude indicator. Just to the left of that, we have the airspeed indicator, which is a vertical tape, and then the altitude, which is another vertical tape. And when the tapes are moving, it's a little more easy to see how they work or understand how they work. Without power on the airplane, we really can't see how they really function. Above and to the left on this side, we have a traffic collision and avoidance scope, and that helps us know where other airplanes are within an 80-mile radius. And then further over to the left, we have a radar scope that looks out 300 miles in front, and so we can see where thunderstorms are, and also our route of flight is projected onto that screen, and so we can make a correction appropriately. Engine instruments are in the middle. We have a standby attitude indicator, which is digital, and without power it really doesn't look like anything but a black screen. But that's a very important gauge, which is self-supporting. Other various controls we have, of course, is 1 throttle for each engine. This is the flap lever, puts down the flaps and slats. And then up here, this thing that looks like a wheel is actually the landing gear extension and retraction lever. And these handles up top are fire shutoff handles. In case there's a fire with an engine, we can just pull this handle out and it completely isolates the engine. It cuts off fuel, it cuts off hydraulics, cuts off electrical power, and it cuts off compressed air coming from the engine. So that's a very important switch also. Then this little red button right behind it is actually a fire extinguisher discharge button. And we push that, it'll blow a fire bottle into the affected engine. So that's normally covered when the handle is in, so that's kind of a safety feature of that. So we're looking at the engineer panel over there. Can I talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely.
The engineer panel is very interesting. In the middle, these are all the fuel gauges right here. There's actually 12 fuel tanks, and this is the total fuel indicator right here. The neat thing is that the pilot doesn't even have a fuel gauge up front. If I want to know how much fuel we have, I have to ask the engineer, and he'll tell me over the intercom. Basically, the engineer manages all the systems of the airplane, and it's a full-time job. He does everything from hydraulics to fuel to electrical systems to compressed air, and they're dedicated individuals. So we have a minimum of 2 engineers on the airplane, and one of them works as a safety observer while we're starting and shutting down the engines at the beginning and end of each mission. And then they take turns on the instrument panel while we're flying across the ocean.
And after tumbling out of the sky 6 times after we lost the flight controls in the F4, which are all hydraulic, no manual backup, the airplane was going down, upside down, 45 degrees, nose low, going through about 5,000 feet, 620 knots indicated airspeed, and it became obvious. A wonderful gentleman sitting about 6 feet behind me there said, "Ed, I don't think we're going to make it." And as a fighter pilot, I'm in control here, don't bother me. "Ed, I don't think we're going to make it." And with that, I said, "Bail out, Kevin, bail out." And we bailed out of the airplane. And as near as I can tell, I think we won the award for the fastest ejection at 620 knots. And both of us broke our backs from the ejection sequence. I used to be 1.25 inches taller. He used to be 1.5 inches taller. But then we landed amongst a whole bunch of Vietnamese who had taken target practice on our way down as we were in our parachutes. But we landed them. So there's no chance for escape and evasion. I mean, we just literally landed in a group of about 100 people. After we hit the ground, the Vietnamese got out machetes, universal tools we call them, about a 12-inch blade on a 6-inch handle, very sharp. And one guy on the left instep, the other guy on the right instep, they proceeded to cut every stitch of clothing and equipment off me. They didn't undo one snap. Velcro wasn't known in those days. Didn't undo one zipper. They literally cut every stitch of clothing, including my underwear, off me as I lay on the ground, somewhat concerned about my own fate. And after they got all the clothes off us, gave me a blue loincloth, wrapped that around me, and then they ran us through a bunch of villages where we paraded us essentially for the people to throw rocks at, spit on, poke, jab, punch, hit, whatever they could get to us. And we did that for probably, we got shot down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was dark before that sequence stopped. As a prisoner of war, I spent 5 years, 8 months, and 4 days. But who's counting? 2,093 days or 2,193 days. One time I knew how many minutes and seconds it was. Somebody did the math for me. After 6 years, despite the, we'll just call it the physical aspects of discomfort that the Vietnamese inflicted on us, despite the environment in which we live, the diet, the medical attention, all the rest of that, you kind of get comfortable with it. I mean, you go into a routine. And to all of a sudden say, you're going to go back to something else, you're a little afraid. You don't know what to expect. You don't know, are they going to find out that I've got this horrible disease that if I die from it and I don't care, it won't make any difference? Am I going to go back to a world that is going to think I'm a criminal because I was part of the war machine in Vietnam? Am I going to go back to a family that's not there? Am I going to go back to a military career that's largely passed me by? You just don't know. It's the fear of the unknown. So you're a little fearful. But at the same time, you look at that airplane and you say, wow, that's my ticket out of here. And in the case of looking at the Hanoi Taxi that came to get us, as the little commercial saying goes, it was our flight to freedom. But you kept wondering, what's going to go wrong? It can't really be over. This dream is, I'm going to wake up here. We're not going to go anywhere. And so when we left the ground, okay, it's going to happen. We're going to be out here. And then when we left the Vietnamese airspace, and got to the point now, okay, they can't call us back. They can't shoot us down. They can't make us go back. That's when all bedlam broke loose in the airplane. You finally say, whew, it's over. And then you start getting, like I said, you start getting a little bit afraid. What are they going to find with my body after all these years? I hadn't eaten anything solid in 2.5 years because the Vietnamese broke some teeth. I'm afraid of going to a dentist after 2.5 years of having my face swollen out a couple of inches. And what are they going to find about my back that I know doesn't work right, or my shoulders that don't move? So I don't like doctors. I don't like dentists. But so it's mixed emotions at best. Obviously, the overriding emotion is, whew, I'm glad to be out of there, and I'm not going back.
The plan was originally, Sally and I, to go to South Africa and then come back, the same route. And then when Dick got involved, Dick said, well, heck, you know, if you're going to go all the way to South Africa, I mean, that's exactly halfway around the world. And he said, I'm an around-the-world kind of guy, and I can't be going only halfway around the world. So he says, it's no different. The distance is no different. Why don't we just continue if we're going to go that far? And I was appalled by that. You know, it didn't seem too bad to just go down to South America, jump over to Africa, run to the tip, talk to everybody, and then come back. It was just one short ocean crossing, it seemed to me. Whereas continuing on is, you know, it's all ocean. If you're in the southern hemisphere, there's very little land. But Dick was determined that that was what we should do, and I thought, well, heck, he's been around the world once, you know. All I got to do is just follow along behind him, and that'll work. But it turned out that he didn't want to be the flight lead. He wanted this to be my trip. It was originally my trip to visit my friends and family. So he was my wingman, which is the only time that ever happened. I've always been his wingman. And that was neat. It was really cool. We flew the two airplanes in formation for 232 flight hours. We went more than 1.5 times around the equator distance, going around the world. We visited 14 or 15 different countries. We landed 39 different airports on the way. We met hundreds and hundreds of really neat people who, many of them have still stayed in touch with us. We gave presentations on what we do and what we do in Mojave and how we were doing this trip around the world to school kids, to high schools, to universities, engineering classes, EAA chapters, and aero clubs. Every place we went, we tried to do one of those. And that was really great. You know, you get to meet some really cool people. And we've influenced the lives, actually, of some young people because of that. You know, Dick's really big on the kid thing. And I think that that was a well worthwhile thing doing. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. We had no mechanical problems to speak of at all. The airplane just ran like a Swiss watch, and we flew thousands and thousands of miles over oceans. You know, I mean, completely across the Pacific Ocean. That's 8,000 nautical miles. And landing on little islands and finding gas. Sometimes we had to use automotive gas because they didn't have avgas. And it was incredible. People brought us into their homes. People bought us tanks of gas. They wouldn't hear of us buying anything. And it just went on and on and on everywhere we went, you know. Dick's a very famous guy. So I was lucky to ride along on his coattails, so to speak, and I got some notoriety myself as well. So that trip was probably the highlight of my life, I think. Just meeting all the people and getting to the country where I was born and visiting with all the people that had suddenly got a lot older. You know, I mean, I remember all these people as kids, and suddenly they're all old men with kids that looked as old as they did when I first knew them. I hadn't seen them in 40 years. Big change. It's amazing how other people get older and you don't. That's what I found anyway. I don't feel a damn bit older than I was when I was in high school. And that's an important part of doing what I do. You know, flight testing brand new airplanes that have never been flown before. You've got to be sharp, you've got to be fit, you've got to be mentally prepared for something like that. You cannot have any negative thoughts. It's always got to be positive, because if you're thinking bad thoughts, you know, that's probably what's going to happen to you. So it's important to stay young at heart, and I think EAA does that. EAA helps all of us do that. To be able to design, if you want to, your own airplane like Corey did, one of our engineers, or to build a plane from a set of plans or from a kit. And having guys like Paul Tibbets set this up with our government that allows us to do this kind of thing is a staggering thing. I mean, none of us could build and fly airplanes if it wasn't for EAA. It wouldn't happen. And I'm incredibly grateful for that.
So what is the mission of the Mohawk? It was the eyes and ears of the military. It was to use electronic means to find the enemy. The mission was boring and dull most of the time, but what you ended up with was an airplane that sat up there boring and dull for many hours until one night or one day you have anti-aircraft fire exploding around your airplane. Or if you fly down low and you're doing a forward-looking pan camera, we had a 70mm forward pan, you flew that under 500 feet. You flew it at 200-300 feet as you photograph a road or a trail, and you flew down. I've flown down the Saipan River, which is the border between Vietnam and Laos, and they would string steel cables across the Saipan River to catch helicopters and or aircraft. And you had to watch because they would raise them up and you'd never see them. You're coming, I usually did the mission, I would dive down, I would be indicating 300 knots. And running that forward pan camera as I went down in sections of the river, marking it off. And while you're down there, of course, the bushes would jump up every now and then, and everybody had an AK-47, and they would shoot at you. But most of the time, they got my tail feathers. Dull and boring missions, and I was flying one night, and we called it the Red Ball. That was Red Route 1, or whatever you want to call it. It was went down from Hanoi south, and ended up over Mugia Pass, dropped in on the backside of northern I Corps, and came down along the river and went into the Airshow Valley. And my TO said, sir, look over here. And I looked over, he says, look at this stuff. We had hundreds of targets moving south. The North Vietnamese weren't supposed, the unspoken rule was, we won't bomb you, you don't do this, and we're all going to be friends and we'll sign a peace treaty. We had divisional strength, multi-divisional strength moving south one night. And we had it. And I remember calling Moonbeam, Spud 1-3. I've got trucks, tanks going down the Red Ball, heading for Mugia. And Moonbeam said, say again, hard to copy, hard copy. And I said, hey, I've got 115 to 125 trucks, tanks, whatever, going down the road, all heading south. I'm supposed to tell you about this stuff. We had a scrambler, and I don't talk very often, but when you see a target like that, and I just had to tell somebody. Moonbeam again told me that he had a hard copy. He says, you are being strobed by SAMs. And I said, it took a moment, and the light bulb went on. Yes, sir, I've got SAMs, and I gave the coordinates all along that road for as far as I go. He said, Spud 1-3, go home. Go home. Just leave. I left, and when I was awakened in the morning, I went down to the intelligence shop. They told me that the fires were burning still at dawn. They had launched 200 plus fighter bombers off of Udorn, Uban. The Navy had launched everything they had off Yankee Station. I was the unarmed reconnaissance plane you read about in the newspapers. They had violated. We were supposed to have free reign over them. And indeed, there were SAM sites strobing me, but I didn't consider them much of a threat as those trucks going down the roadway heading south to our troops. They had secondaries, he says, and fires burning till dawn. He said they should have given you a medal about it, but we can't hardly talk about it.